Hey, Todd, big fan. Glad to have you on the show. Thanks for spending a few minutes with us.
Of course. How you doing, man?
Good. I kind of discovered your new venture, like I discover everything in the whole world now on TikTok, and I was like, "Dang, McShay's doing a podcast now." And then it's all with Bill and Ringer, and so congratulations because I'm already a fan. It just feels like when it comes to college and NFL, you're pretty dialed into both. How's the transition been?
It's been fun. It really has. It's not what I expected. I was with ESPN for 17 years and, kind of developed my career and through the NFL draft and then doing college games for about 12 years on the sideline as a sideline analyst. And so when that relationship ended, let's put it that way, I wasn't sure what the next step was. So I kind of interviewed and talked to like 9 different places and finally found a home. And it feels right with Spotify and the Ringer. And I always said, like, if I'm going to do it, if I'm going to come back, I just want to do it my way with my people, handcuffs off, and just be able to share more of the process, right? Like not just 90-second clips with video over it and the producer in my ear telling me, when to wrap up. And I'm sure you can relate to this. Like there's something freeing about just being yourself with your people, being able to go on. And if it lasts 50 minutes, great. If it lasts 90 minutes, great. But be able to just kind of be authentically you without any restrictions. So that part has been a blast. It's only 2 weeks old, but the McShay show, so far so good, I think. And we're having a lot of fun. I know that.
Yeah, I agree. And something you said there resonates because obviously, like I hired all my friends. We've been doing this for a long time. But it's the little things too. Like, for example, the Richmond Spiders helmet that's behind you. And I watch clips or I've listened to the podcast. And I was like, okay, I've watched McShay do draft analysis forever. I've watched you do. But like, I didn't know your story. But that helmet made me look into, I had no idea that, did you walk on at Richmond in like 95? Is that what it is?
Yeah. So I came from a small town, Swampscott, Massachusetts, right? Football is it's not a hotbed. It's not Georgia, Florida, Texas, California. And wound up a coach, Jim Reed, who coached at UMass for a long time, brought he was, in Massachusetts before coaching at Boston College when he got the head coaching job at Richmond, brought a bunch of massholes down to Richmond, Virginia. And that was kind of a culture shock for all of us. But I was a preferred walk-on. And I came to realize what preferred meant was like, yeah, you can come and get a great education, but you're going to be a tackling dummy for a while and see if you have a chance to actually, contribute to this team. So it was a great experience. I never thought I'd be able to play with guys like Mark Megna, Sean Barber went on to the NFL. But it kind of paved the way for me. I got injured and wound up doing an undergraduate coaching gig with University of Richmond. And that was kind of the jumping off point for me, just sitting in an office, breaking down tape, doing all these demeaning tasks at the time, but it got my foot in the door and it was kind of the start of all of this.
And to your point, because you do this podcast and you can go a bit more long form and you can even pick the set behind you, I saw the helmet and was like, I wonder what his relationship is with Richmond, because again, I'd only watch like you do what you do really well on ESPN, which was you would talk about the draft for the most part. And you'd be the guy that I would watch a lot of when it came time to actually honestly making bets on who I thought was going to fall where. But it was that, and it was like what you're doing now, which is really cool, is giving a more look at actually who you are. So congratulations, and I'm already a fan, so really looking forward to the growth in the podcast space. And I also enjoy. I was listening to you talk about running backs and how it's different than it used to be back when we were a lot younger, when they would draft a bunch of running backs early. But there are going to be a lot of running backs drafted early for running backs this season, like multiple running backs. Why do we think that is?
It's interesting. Part of it is, I think, just football in general is cyclical, right? And I think we got away from the running backs when the spread offense came in, and you started to see it was all about wide receivers and getting guys the ball in space. And so I think the running back position had to evolve to guys who weren't just built like Eddie George, and 30, 35 carries a game, pounding it away. Running backs now are an extension of the run game's an extension of the pass game, and they've got to be able to catch the football and be dynamic when they get in space, because that's what everyone's trying to do is create these opportunities. And so as the game has evolved, the running back position has evolved. And now even turning in, tune into the NFL on Sundays. Like running backs are becoming a bigger and bigger factor. And it's not like, three guys in a committee necessarily. Like just, the vast majority of good teams have one and a lot of times like two really good running backs. Look at Detroit, right? Like Jahmyr Gibbs, they use a first round pick. Terrible decision to draft a running back in the first round. How is Brad Holmes, the GM for Detroit, going to address all the important positions when he's using one of those first round picks on a running back? Well, now you've got Jahmyr Gibbs, you've got David Montgomery. They're kind of a two-headed monster. The running game is setting up the passing game. Play action is where Jared Goff feeds off of. And so we're starting to see that evolve. And I think in college football, you see the same. And now all of a sudden you've got an Ashton Jeanty who nobody nationally really knew about coming into this year. And now he's probably the front runner for the Heisman Trophy with the numbers he's putting up, along with Dylan Gabriel from Oregon and Travis Hunter, who's playing, both sides of the ball and doing historic things. So with Jeanty, he's going to be a top 10 pick. But even beyond that, like Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson, watching that 1-2 duel and what they were able to do against Penn State and what they're doing for Ohio State. Omarion Hampton for North Carolina is having a huge year. Nicholas Singleton, the running back for Penn State. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's unbelievable. Like Trevor Etienne from Georgia, Kalel Mullings, a former linebacker, now running back at Michigan, having a huge year. Dylan Sampson, anyone who's a fan of the SEC, watching what he's doing for Tennessee. So this could be a historic year, not necessarily first round or even first two rounds. But when we get into like the late second, third, fourth, fifth round, it could be the most running backs we've seen come off the board in a long, long time.
I have a heavy bias because I have a relationship with Deion Sanders, Coach Prime. I've known him for a long time. I love him. He's my favorite. So I love what he's doing at Colorado. I have a heavy bias, but I say that. So if I ask you, how do you feel like it's not even an experiment anymore. It doesn't feel like that because he's been there long enough. How do you feel like Coach Prime has done at Colorado?
I think it's been a massive success by any measurement. It started with his ability because of his name and his brand and the way he promotes everything that they do. And it turned a lot of people off. But what it didn't do is turn off recruits from coming and wanting to play at Colorado. Colorado was 1-11 2 years ago. And we had Joel Klatt on the show last week. And he obviously was a three-year starter at Colorado and is tied in very well to Colorado. And I forget the number, but I think they lost by like close to an average of like 20 points that year when they were 1-11 before Coach Prime came in. And so obviously the attention they got, the commercials, the interviews and everything that came with it, it felt like a little bit of a disappointment when they won, what was it, four games a year ago, 4 or 5 games. But it was still a huge turnaround from the product on the field the year before that he was there. And this year, the attention, like the national media has not been on Colorado as much as it was a year ago in the first year that he was there. This is a damn good football team, man. Like they're protecting Shedeur Sanders better. Their defense is a lot better. Like I'm not going to sit here and say they're going to win the Big 12 because you got BYU playing at a great level. You've got Kansas State. Iowa State had the loss last week. But Colorado's in it. And when's the last time we could say like Colorado in November is legitimately in the Big 12 race? So that's been phenomenal to see. The other thing too, man, I'm excited about, and I was talking to Joel Klatt about this as well. I think 2 weeks ago on one of our first shows, I made the comment, and I believe it, like we have to take it seriously when Coach Prime says, I'm going to dictate terms in the NFL draft. We've seen it before. John Elway. We saw it with Eli Manning. Like every once in a while, someone steps in and says, you know what? Your system doesn't apply. And I'm not going to allow my son to go to an organization that has no chance of winning. With David Tepper as the owner in Carolina, there's no chance he's going to let his son go and play in Carolina. There's probably no chance he's going to let him play in Cleveland. So that's going to be such an interesting facet. And I also, it was interesting after I put out that clip, someone brought it to my attention that Coach Prime had liked our video. I think it was a video that we did on Instagram, right? Just like a minute and a half clip on me talking about how it is serious that Coach Prime is going to dictate terms where Shedeur goes and maybe even where Travis Hunter goes. And he liked that clip. And I'm well aware that he's not sitting around watching the McShay show in the first 2 weeks of, its inception. And so like how intentional he is with that, and having someone that's scouring through social media to find clips to help kind of promote the concept and let everyone in the National Football League know, hey, this is real. Like, I'm going to be a problem for some of you organizations that want to draft my son. And that's going to be a fascinating storyline to follow.
You mentioned David Tepper, owner of Carolina. Let's stay on the owners for a second. Jerry Jones I don't know. Is he too old to do this anymore?
It's hard to say that he's too old to do this anymore, but I think if he wants to help himself in the Cowboys organization, there has to be a little bit more checks and balances. There's got to be people in that organization that can tell him no, that can have foresight, that can advise and guide a little bit better. Some of the offseason moves. I mean, you look at some of the people that they let go, Amari Cooper being one of them. And Tony Pollard in Tennessee. I know Tennessee's not winning, but my goodness, is he effective as the running back there? And can you imagine like the difference between bringing back Ezekiel Elliott, who wasn't even dressed this week because of basically a suspension for not attending meetings and all the other issues. It feels like a mess. And to see that, to see Dak Prescott, they caught him saying, we bleep and suck. And just like, it feels like for the first time, it's not just like this big Cowboys show and the product isn't as good as all the hype. It feels like things are falling apart in that organization. And to spend the money they did on Dak when they spent that money, which meant they had to pay a lot more because they got so late in the process rather than setting the market a little bit earlier. It just poorly managed in terms of the salary cap and the players that they're paying versus the players they're letting go, would, to me, stands out the most from this last offseason.
Two more organizational questions, and they can kind of be in the same order. The Bengals have to win a bunch, and the Jets have to win a bunch. They both have had pretty subpar starts to the season. Can either one of those teams win enough games to make the playoffs?
I think they're both capable, talent-wise. I truly think they're both capable. But the margin of error that they've put themselves in is just, it's hard to overcome. So if there are any two teams that talent-wise are capable of doing it, it's the Bengals and the Jets. The Bengals, it seems like they always, with Joe Burrow, they've always gotten off to slow starts. The contract situations with their wide receivers absolutely played into that early this year. They're starting to pull it all together. I think they'll make a legitimate run at it, but I don't have enough confidence that they'll actually be able to win. What was the Burrow quote before last week? Like, we got to win 7 out of 9. That's doable. We can do that. Paraphrasing, but essentially that's what he said. And yeah, it is doable, but it ain't going to be easy, And so I wouldn't bet on them being able to make that kind of run. But if there's a team that could do it, I think they're one of them. For the Jets, like, you see the Richmond Spiders helmet, Joe Douglas, I'm pointing to the wrong one. Joe Douglas, I played with Joe. He's the general manager of the Jets, played with Joe at Richmond. So I've known him for, almost 30 years now. He's put together a really good roster. Ownership with Woody Johnson has made it difficult. Just check out Bill Belichick and all of his quotes. And I know there's a rivalry there and frustration in their history, but he's not wrong with a lot of things he's saying. And so it's difficult, when ownership has its hand in some of the decisions, that plays a factor. Aaron Rodgers does not look the same. The injuries definitely have slowed him down. He's not able to move around the way he used to. There feels like there's a lack of tempo and urgency in that offense. But this past week, they finally looked like the Jets that you'd expect to see. Devontae Adams, the addition is huge. Garrett Wilson still playing at an extremely high level. Breece Hall is one of the best, most talented running backs in the NFL. Like, they've got the talent. I think defensively, they've been a little disappointing in terms of their tackling, their linebackers, and all of that. But I don't pull for any organization, but I appreciate what Joe has done there. The players he's drafted, the players that they've brought in, they've done a phenomenal job. It's just, can this organization gel and can they play their best ball down the stretch, which they're going to have to do. And they're going to have to go on a run similar to the one we were talking about with the Bengals, like probably 7 out of 9 wins. And that's not easy to do in the NFL.
Last question, multi-part, but I do want to talk about 4 rookie quarterbacks and how you feel like they have played based on how you felt like they would play. Obviously, Caleb Williams, Jayden Daniels. I love Bo Nix. I didn't love Bo Nix, but I love Bo Nix now because that dude just goes. Like, he's an idiot and he's awesome, like, in the same game. Also, who else am I forgetting? And Drake May, yeah. So talk about those 4 quarterbacks and how you feel their development's been and kind of the ceiling for each of these guys.
I mean, we could go on for an hour, right? But I'll try to kind of be brief and sum it up. Jayden Daniels there's a case study that general managers should study. And I think more importantly, quarterbacks in college football that legitimately have a chance to go play in the NFL should study. Jayden was it was like a 5th round prospect going into his first year at LSU. Developed. Talked to Brian Kelly before a Tennessee game that they wind up getting blown out on, but he understands like what I do and told me, like, listen, stick with Jayden. He's special. We know he's a special athlete, but what you don't see yet on tape is in games is what I see in practice, the anticipation, the ability to throw guys open. When he trusts his read, he's a phenomenal passer. And we hadn't seen that yet. And he said, I'm pissed off this week because everyone in the local media is saying Jayden doesn't have an interception. He's been tremendous. He's like, I just want him to throw an interception. I want him to like get to realize like the world's not going to end if he trusts a read, throws the ball and it doesn't work out and he throws a pick. And I'll never forget the first play in that game. They had a design comeback route, and I could just hear him in meetings like, Jayden, I don't care if it's an interception. I don't care what happens. Let it rip. Trust your read. And he did. And it was a perfect throw completion. And even though they lost that game, it was like from that point on, he kept getting better. And what we saw in his second and final year, I said coming out, like, I think Caleb Williams has tools that are unique and special, and if developed properly, can be one of the elites of all time. And you see some comparisons with he and Patrick Mahomes. But if I was dropped on this earth and was just given the 2023 tape of the 2 quarterbacks, I'd say, oh yeah, Jayden's the guy. And Jayden had with Mike Denbrock, his offensive coordinator at LSU, Jayden came into the NFL and it was a lot of similar stuff. And it was very similar system. So not only did he have like 56 starts or whatever it was between Arizona State and LSU and have the opportunity to grow in a more of a pro style system as he got to LSU, but he played in a system that prepared him for the NFL. So I think the combination of the game experience that Jayden had and the developing that he did in his final year and a half there at LSU, and the fact for NFL teams to look and say, you know what, how critically important was it to Jayden his rookie year to play in a system that he was comfortable in? And so I say that because what he's doing is so unique and special. Rookie quarterbacks should not play at the level that Jayden Daniels is playing this year. And what is Washington now? 7-2. So this is a rarity, but there's something to learn from this. And then you look at Caleb, and Caleb after the first 3 weeks, we're like, oh no. And watching Jayden, how great he was playing, like maybe Caleb's not what we thought he was going to be. Maybe some of the, the backyard football, the sandlot stuff, maybe he's always going to try to play hero ball. But then he started to really make progress from like weeks 3 or 4 for like 3 or 4 weeks. And now in the last couple of weeks, he's coming back down to earth a little bit. The problem for Caleb is if it keeps on this trajectory, it's going to be just another rookie quarterback going into his second year with a new head coach, a new offensive coordinator, and starting over again. And so hopefully Chicago makes the right decision if that's the route they go with a new staff and brings in someone that actually knows how to develop quarterbacks, because Caleb is absolutely special. He is. Jayden and Caleb are unique. They're different. They have a chance to be elite quarterbacks in the NFL. So that's those 2. Drake May is kind of exactly where we thought, an organization that does not have the supporting cast around him. Hopefully he doesn't have to play as a rookie, but we all kind of know he's going to play as a rookie, right? Because they all do. And I've been encouraged. Like I was at the Jets game. I went down there with my son and watched the Jets game. And before he had the concussion and got injured, I was really encouraged by like how poised he was, how comfortable he was. He's not there as a passer yet. The system's completely different, and it's been a big jump for him. But you see some of the positive signs, and I think if New England next year can bring in some more weapons, protect him better, another year of experience, I think Drake May is going to have a chance to be a solid to above average quarterback in the league. And then Bo Nix, I didn't see it as much as Sean Payton, and I give Sean Payton a lot of credit. And there's going to be bumps in the road. And after the first couple of weeks, I kept thinking to myself, maybe Sean shouldn't have been so, like over the top with his preseason hype of Bo, and maybe he set the bar too high, and so the expectation's never going to meet it. But he loves Bo Nix, and that's his guy, and he's been looking for his guy, the next Drew Brees. And I'm not saying he's going to be Drew Brees, because there's not many that God makes, right? But I do think that he is the right fit, and we're seeing Bo like he's mature, competitive, it just loves the game, coach's son, all those sorts of things. And you can see the development week in and week out. There's going to be, setbacks. We saw it this Sunday, but you can see Bo Nix is the right guy for Sean Payton. And that's fun to watch too, as a guy who sits in this room and watches tape all the time. Like it's not just about the process of where they get drafted. It's about where they land and what do they have around them to develop. And clearly Jaden has the right things in place to develop, which is shocking to say from a Washington organization with Daniel Snyder at the top for so long. They couldn't do that. Caleb does not yet. Drake May does not yet. Bo Nix, it will keep getting better, but Bo Nix is in the right place. And that's all you can ask for as a rookie quarterback.
I want to encourage everybody to check out the McShay Show. I'm already a massive fan. Are you doing 3 episodes a week? Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday?
Yeah, we're doing it. So Saturday night is just during the season. We're doing it after the primetime game. This is our first week live. I'm glad you brought it up. The last 2 weeks we've taped it. This is the first week we're going to be live on YouTube and Spotify right after the primetime game. And we figure let's get the kinks out the first 2 weeks, right? Now we're going into week 3. And I mean, who doesn't want to talk about LSU, Alabama right after that game? And I know there's going to be lunatics that are still up that want to yell at their screen, and like we're the place to do it. So probably around 11:30, whenever Herbie and Fowler, they sign off on that game, we're going to jump right on, and we're going to talk about that game and some of the other big games on Saturday. And then every Tuesday and Thursday, we'll kind of college football reaction, college football look ahead, Tuesday and Thursday respectively, and always with the NFL and NFL draft tied in. And when the season wraps up, it'll probably be 2 shows still on Tuesday and Thursday, and just a heavy focus on the NFL draft in February, March, and April.
Go search up the McShay Show. Todd, big fan again. Thank you for your time, and hopefully I'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, I'd love that, Bobby. I appreciate the time with you.